My best friend betrayed me by getting pregnant with my husband's child, and then my own mother tried to convince me to give them full custody of my kids. My husband Dev and I started dating when I was 21 and he was 23. We'd been together for almost 2 years when he proposed, and we've now been married for 12 years with 2 children. In the second year of our relationship, Dev introduced me to his mother, Mallory. I liked her right away and tried hard to make a good impression, but unfortunately, the feeling wasn't mutual. The thing is, Mallory had been a widow for a long time. Her husband died of a heart attack many years ago, and she raised Dev alone, so they were very close. You could say he was a bit of a mama's boy, and he was terrified to introduce me to her because he always desperately sought her approval in everything. The main reason Mallory didn't like me was because I came from a well-off middle-class family. My parents owned several businesses, and I grew up in pretty comfortable conditions. They paid for my college and bought me my first car so I could get to work. But they also taught me independence and how to build a life on my own. I always worked hard to support myself and never asked them for financial help after graduation. Unlike me, my husband had a tougher life. His father served in the military and was rarely home, and after his death, Dev and Mallory became inseparable. Mallory was an alcoholic, so Dev had to take care of her from a young age. He got a job at McDonald's as a teenager to earn extra money. Later, he dropped out of college because he didn't like his communications major. He told his mom how miserable he was during that time. Without a degree, he struggled to find stable work, so he started looking for income sources that didn't require one. That's how he became a freelance writer, and to his surprise, he did well. He loved to travel and spent a few years as a digital nomad before meeting me and settling down. During all that time, his mother asked him to send her money, and he did so willingly, even though it really hurt his finances. When things between us got more serious, I finally told him about my family and our wealth. He didn't believe me at first, but he was shocked when he Googled us. Dev got angry that I'd hidden it for so long and accused me of not trusting him. I tried to explain that in the past, people often wanted to be with me just because of my family, so I'd learned not to reveal my financial background too quickly. He eventually understood and took it okay, but sometimes he'd make comments about how I never had to struggle or work hard. That hurt, because even with my parents' support, I worked hard to build my own career. I did marketing and branding for influencers and companies, and that's how I fully supported my lifestyle without help from my parents. Dev never really understood that, and that should have been my first red flag. When we decided to move in together, Dev immediately said we should live at my place since it was bigger. I agreed, and then brought up splitting the rent. Dev didn't like that. He said he made too little as a freelance writer and that, since I was from a wealthy family, I should prove my love by covering not just his share of the rent but all the bills. I said that wasn't fair but offered to pay the rent if he at least covered his own personal expenses. That made him furious. He raised his voice and went on a rant about how selfish I was, and how my refusal to pay his bills showed how cruel I was. We argued for a long time, and eventually I gave in. I had to cut back on a lot just to pay all our expenses, but I was madly in love. Meanwhile, Dev kept sending money to his mom and buying her expensive gifts. Every time I pointed out that he had money for his mom, but not for our bills, he'd get angry and say she needed it more than we did because she was a lonely, aging woman. I felt guilty and stopped bringing it up. When he proposed, I was thrilled. Honestly, looking back now, I see how little effort he actually put in. I'd hoped he wouldn't be cheap this time and would plan something special, but he thought proposing in our backyard was a great idea. To be fair, he did ask my parents for their blessing like a gentleman. My mom, who adored Dev, suggested he get help from my best friend Kylie to plan the proposal. He agreed, and together they came up with a brilliant idea of proposing in our backyard in front of all our family and friends. Kylie had been my best friend since school. Our moms had been friends since childhood, so we became close too. We always supported each other. She was like a sister to me, my soulmate. We did literally everything together. Her mother adored me just like my mother loved Kylie, as if she were her own daughter. When I started dating Dev, of course, I introduced him to Kylie, and they became friends too. She helped him not only with planning the proposal, but also with choosing the ring. Honestly, the surprise proposal caught me off guard, but seeing my whole family gathered to celebrate made it easier to accept, even though I was a bit disappointed that Dev proposed in our backyard. The first people to hug and congratulate me were my mother, Kylie, and Kylie's mom. Mallory, Dev's mother, was also happy for us and told me she had high expectations for me as her daughter-in-law and hoped I'd do everything to make her son happy. It was a joyful day for all of us. Eventually, Dev and I got married, and even after the wedding, I offered to pay all the household expenses, while he didn't spend a single cent on me. I paid for our weekly dates and annual vacations because Dev insisted he was saving for our future. When I got pregnant with our first child, James, I had to quit my job due to a difficult pregnancy. Dev wasn't happy about it and started arguing, saying I had to work or else we wouldn't have enough money to support the baby. I cried a lot, and that was the first time I opened up to my parents about our situation. My mother sided with Dev, saying he was right and that hundreds of women work while pregnant. My father, on the other hand, was furious. He called Dev, told him exactly what he thought of him, and firmly said it was time to act like a man and take care of his family. He warned Dev that if he continued treating me that way, he wouldn't let his daughter suffer and would rather see us divorced. Dev clearly got nervous after hearing that from my dad, even though I didn't want a divorce. We had signed a prenup at my father's insistence before the wedding, and Dev knew that in case of divorce, he'd lose access to the luxury lifestyle. He'd be left without the house and expensive car that were in my name. So, for the first time ever, he stopped sending money to his mother and began paying bills. I still paid the rent since I had savings, but Mallory was furious. She was used to living off her son, and when the money stopped, she blamed me. When I gave birth to James, I was overjoyed. Everyone came to the hospital to congratulate us. Kylie stayed with me for a few days until I recovered enough to return home. Dev was busy with work and refused to take care of me or the baby. I was very anxious as a new mother. During that time, my parents and Kylie's mom helped me as much as they could. Mallory, however, did absolutely nothing. Every time she visited her grandson, she made snide comments about me, telling me I needed to lose weight or that I should immediately quiet the baby if he cried. Her remarks were always directed at me, never at her son, who did absolutely nothing to help. After James was born, I was overwhelmed with exhaustion and loneliness. At the time, I didn't know I was experiencing postpartum depression, which many mothers go through, though few talk about it. Despite all my efforts to tell Dev I needed support and help raising our child, he remained distant and refused to do anything. He said taking care of the baby was solely my responsibility as a mother, and that he wouldn't help because he didn't know what to do. While I struggled to care for a newborn, manage the household, and battle postpartum depression, Dev's unwillingness to participate only made things worse. He wouldn't even agree to change a diaper or feed the baby. Each day, the weight of responsibilities grew heavier, and the depression became more unbearable. I felt like I was drowning in endless unmet needs and expectations. At some point, I decided to open up to my parents about how I was feeling. My father was understanding, but my mother refused to believe anything was wrong. She said postpartum depression didn't exist, and that I had to be strong for my child and overcome everything on my own. When I told her that Dev refused to help, she scolded me, saying he was the father, but I had to be the better parent. It hurt to realize even my own mother couldn't see how hard it was for me. I felt like I was drowning in my mother's denial, Dev's apathy, and Mallory's constant cutting remarks. The depression wouldn't let go. My only support was Kylie. I told her everything about my marriage, and she always listened, showed sympathy, and supported me. She also said Dev was a terrible husband and father, and was angry at him for his behavior. It helped knowing that, besides my father, I at least had Kylie during such a hard time. A year later, I got another shock. I was pregnant again. It was an accident, because I definitely didn't want a second child so soon. But I decided to trust in God's plan and keep the baby. Dev, to put it mildly, was furious. He stated that we couldn't afford a second child. We had a huge argument, and in the end, I realized it was time for me to go back to work. I contacted my former boss, who gladly took me back as a freelancer until a permanent position became available. My second pregnancy was also difficult, but now I had the added responsibility of being a parent, so I was determined to handle everything. This time, when I started earning, I decided that I wouldn't transfer my entire salary to our joint account anymore. I needed to think about the future for myself and my children, so I started saving 50% of my salary and sent the remaining half to the joint budget. When I started earning again, Dev became lazier by the day. He suddenly began complaining that he hated his job and wanted to quit. I tried to talk him out of it, reminding him that he didn't have a degree, so he should hold on to this well-paid job. This angered him because he hated when it was mentioned that he dropped out of college. Dev said that since I had taken a break, he had the right to do the same. I disagreed, explaining that my break was because I was carrying a child and going through a difficult pregnancy. Despite our arguments, Dev quit, stating that we had enough savings and now that I was earning, he could rest a bit. He spent the whole day playing video games, while I took care of the child, did the housework, and worked. I left James with my parents when I went to work, as my mom didn't mind watching him. When I came home and picked up my son, Dev was still sitting on the couch, glued to his games. This went on for quite a while, and eventually, I got tired of carrying all the parental responsibilities. In a fit of rage, I demanded that he start looking for a new job. Dev didn't like it and began spending more time at his friend Clinton's house, where they played video games together for hours. Clinton was divorced. His wife cheated on him and left, which made him hate all women. This is why I didn't like meeting him and disapproved of Dev spending so much time with him. But Dev visited Clinton more and more often, and our arguments became more frequent. I felt like a single mother because Dev was literally not helping with anything, but I kept going for the sake of the children. When I gave birth to our second child, Nick, Dev was so busy that he ignored my numerous calls and messages when I went into labor. In the end, he just missed them. I never suspected him of anything bad, although there had been signs. Kylie also didn't answer when I called her, so my parents had to take me to the hospital. She came the next day to visit me and the baby, apologizing for not being there, explaining that she got stuck at work. I didn't think much of it at the time. After Nick was born, I finally set an ultimatum. If Dev didn't return to work, I would pack my things and leave. This led to a huge argument, but I no longer cared. As a mother, I understood that I needed someone who would share the responsibility, because handling everything on my own was impossible. I told him that I wouldn't hold a grudge. He was free to do whatever he wanted, but I needed a partner who would be involved in family life. To my surprise, Dev said he would start looking for a job the next day. I expected resistance or another argument, but unexpectedly, he agreed, or at least that's what it seemed like to me at the time. The next day, while my husband was in the shower, I was collecting his dirty clothes for laundry, and suddenly heard a notification sound from his phone. I turned around and saw a message on the locked screen from a familiar number. My breath stopped, my eyes widened in shock. I took the phone and tapped on the message. "When are you going to tell her? I'm pregnant and can't keep this a secret anymore." I froze, rereading those words over and over. When Dev came out of the shower, he saw me standing motionless with his phone in my hands. He rushed over, trying to grab the device, but it was too late. I dropped the laundry basket, walked up to him, and slapped him hard across the face. I didn't even think about it. It was as if someone else was controlling me. I was shaking with rage, and he stood in shock, realizing I had read it. His eyes widened, and he started stammering, trying to explain that it was some kind of misunderstanding. I looked him straight in the eyes and said that to me, he was dead. Then I packed my things, packed the kids' things, and took them to my parents. When they opened the door and saw me with the kids and suitcases, they were shocked. At that moment, I couldn't hold it in anymore and broke down, telling them everything. I've been crying for 2 days because I just can't believe my life is destroyed. I told everything to my boss, and she generously allowed me to take a few days off. Honestly, I have no words, which is why I'm writing about it on the internet. My best friend, with whom I had been friends for 20 years, betrayed me by sleeping with my husband, with whom I had been married for 12 years. And not only that, now she's pregnant. This means that my marriage to Dev is over. Dev and Kylie keep calling and texting me, begging me to at least listen to them, but I refuse. Dev begs me not to file for divorce, saying I should think about our children. Update 1. Hey guys. Thank you for your numerous messages and comments on my post. I know I haven't written in a month, but so much has happened in my life, and I've had to deal with all of it. I've gone back to work because, no matter what happens, I can't afford a long break. Honestly, right now work is my salvation and a chance to distract myself. Many of you were right about Dev and Kylie already being together for a long time. Kylie sent me a long message where she claimed she didn't want this, but you see, she fell in love with Dev, and now that she's expecting a baby, she has to think about herself. That's why she allegedly tried to make Dev confess to me. Dev, on the other hand, realized that he would lose access to his luxurious life if we divorced. He realized he made a mistake, and according to him, he just wanted to sleep with Kylie, but now that she's pregnant, he has no way out. He's begging me to forgive him, and even went as far as suggesting that I convince Kylie to either abort the child or give it up so that we could raise it together. His absurd ideas and sense of self-importance only fuel my rage even more. As for how all of this started, it turns out that Dev had been complaining to Kylie behind my back for a long time. While spending his days playing video games, he told her how hard it was for him in our marriage because I was making him look for a job. He said Kylie understood him and knew how to listen. When he told this to his best friend Clinton, instead of stopping him, Clinton actually encouraged him, saying that Kylie was a real woman, unlike me. That's how they first met, under the pretext of just talking, but this two-faced snake decided to sleep with my husband. I have no idea what motivated Kylie, considering she knew what a terrible partner Dev was, but now I don't care anymore. In her message, Kylie also said that I should be happy because she freed me from him, since I wanted to leave him but didn't have the courage to do it. Maybe that was her plan all along, who knows? Honestly, I'm glad she took out the trash, and now let her live the rest of her life regretting getting involved with someone like Dev. I'm also almost certain that the day I went into labor, they were together, which is why neither of them answered my calls. But even that isn't the worst part. When I first told my parents about Dev and Kylie, my mom refused to believe me, but my dad was furious. He called Dev and yelled at him for 15 minutes, even though I was crying at that moment. My mom tried to smooth things over, saying that I might be wrong, because Kylie couldn't do this to me. So, I called Kylie's mom and told her everything. Unlike my mom, she was furious. She didn't doubt my words for a second and immediately sided with me because she knew I would never make up such a story. She kept repeating how ashamed she was of her daughter and cried with me. She truly understood the betrayal I was going through. After talking to my dad, I decided to file for divorce. We already have the right lawyers, and thanks to the prenuptial agreement and Def's infidelity, the process will be smooth. The only challenge might be the custody of the children, but I'm confident that Def won't want to take any responsibility for them, so I'm almost sure I will get full custody. But what surprises me the most is my mom's reaction. She is adamantly against my decision to divorce. When she realized that no matter how much she begged me, I wouldn't change my mind, she suddenly changed her tactic and started saying that I should give full custody of the children to Def. At first, I thought she was joking, but she kept repeating it over and over these past few days. Today, I finally lost it and yelled at her, asking how she could even suggest something like that, but she didn't answer and just left the room. Her behavior is starting to seem very suspicious to me. Why would my own mother want me to give the children to someone who can't even take care of them? I think it's time to sit down and have an honest conversation with her, and I'll do it in front of my dad so we can finally figure out what's going on in her head. So, before we move on to the next update, I suggest you write your version in the comments about why you think my mom is acting this way, because I think anyone would agree that this is completely abnormal behavior. Now, let's move on to the next update. Update 2. It's been just a few days since my last update, but my personal messages are literally flooded with theories from people. I understand that for some, this might just be an interesting story, but for me, this is the reality of my life. My lawyer has already sent Def the divorce papers, and he called me crying like a child, begging for forgiveness. I just laughed and told him to get ready to lose everything. James and Nick are doing fine despite all the chaos in the family. Def never spent much time with them, so they barely even notice his absence. Of course, it's hard for me to care for the baby in this situation, but I am really grateful for my father's support. Kylie's mom also came to visit me. She lives in another city and didn't even want to speak with Kylie or hear her excuses. She said she plans to sever all ties with her daughter because this is a disgrace not only to my family but to theirs as well. She admitted that she's ashamed of her own daughter. She also knows just how useless a father Def will be, so she's sure that Kylie will come to her for money sooner or later, and she's determined not to give her a penny. News of my divorce and Kylie's betrayal has spread among friends and relatives, and everyone is on my side. People aren't all that forgiving, so Def and Kylie has started receiving dozens of messages with curses and insults. And it was right at that moment that Melanie finally called me. She hadn't bothered to reach out once over the past month, not to support me, not to apologize. I'm sure she knew everything but was too ashamed that her perfect son had ruined his life and even got another woman pregnant. She called to say how much Def is suffering now that his whole family knows about his affair, and they're all furious. I stayed quiet while she shamelessly went on about how, as a good daughter-in-law, I should return to him and withdraw the divorce papers. She tried to justify her son's actions, saying that sometimes men go astray, but it's the woman's job to bring them back. I couldn't listen to it anymore and told her to shut up. She was stunned that I was raising my voice at her for the first time in my life, since I had always been polite and patient with her. I told her she should be ashamed of raising such a useless man, a freeloading son, and if she dares to call me again, I'll make sure to drain him dry during the divorce. I reminded her that I had supported her grown child throughout our marriage, so she no longer has any right to ask anything of me, especially now that he's ruined our marriage and got my best friend pregnant. Melanie tried to squeeze out some apologies, but I warned her that if she calls me again, I'll sue her. It was incredibly satisfying to finally say everything to her face. Now she knows that I'm no longer the quiet, patient daughter-in-law I used to be. Jeff will get what he deserves, and no one is going to save him. Yesterday, I finally sat down to talk to my parents to get to the bottom of my mom's suspicious behavior. I'd already warned my dad that my mom was insisting that I give up full custody of the children, so he was ready to find out the truth. I directly asked my mom why she wanted me to give Jeff custody of the children, even though that will never happen. At first, she hesitated, but my dad started pressing her, and eventually she spoke. To our shock, my mom confessed that after I told them about Jeff and Kylie's affair, she decided to meet with Kylie herself because she didn't believe me. They met, and Kylie started begging her for forgiveness. My mom couldn't believe that Kylie really did this to me, but then Kylie admitted she was pregnant and needed Jeff to help her raise the child. Instead of yelling at her, my mom felt sorry for her. She promised financial support and tried to convince Kylie not to ruin my marriage with Jeff, explaining that Jeff could support Kylie and their child while still staying married to me. But Kylie didn't want that option. Then my mom changed tactics and told her that since she had destroyed my marriage, she now had to take responsibility for the children. Kylie was shocked, but her mother convinced her that I was suffering from postpartum depression and incapable of being a good mother. According to her, the best thing Kylie could do was raise all the children together, since they would all be siblings anyway. She told Kylie that I would never allow Jeff to be involved in my children's lives, which meant they needed a healthy parent like Jeff, because I was mentally ill. Furthermore, my mother convinced Kylie that if I gave up full custody of the children, I would have to pay huge alimony, which Kylie could use for her child. This is what convinced Kylie, and that's why my mother started pressuring me to give custody of James and Nick to Jeff. When my father and I got the truth out of her, we were shocked. I couldn't believe I was experiencing yet another betrayal. My own mother decided that since I had postpartum depression, I wasn't capable of raising my own children, and preferred that Kylie raise them instead. It shook me that she didn't understand why I even had postpartum depression. Jeff had refused to help me, and I had begged him to be an equal parent, but he just pretended not to hear me. I had handled everything on my own, while he sought every opportunity to avoid responsibility. I broke down because I couldn't understand how she could betray me like this after my husband and best friend had already done so. My father remained silent for a while, and then simply told my mother to leave the house. She started crying and tried to argue, but he told her their marriage was over and that he no longer wanted to see her. I don't remember what happened next, but in the end, my mother went to live with her sister. I don't know what to do. It feels like I can't trust anyone anymore. Everyone is betraying me as if I mean nothing to them. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update. First of all, I got the divorce last month. My father has been my support all along. We brought the divorce proceedings to a close, and as expected, Jeff didn't get anything from me thanks to our prenuptial agreement. When it came to custody of the children, he initially tried to get full custody, but when he was denied, he demanded joint custody. However, my lawyer presented the court with evidence that throughout our marriage, Jeff had been an entirely useless father, that he had no stable job, that his mother was an alcoholic, and that he had cheated on me and gotten another woman pregnant. This argument destroyed his chances, and the court awarded me full custody of our children. Now, Jeff is required to pay me monthly child support. Nothing has given me more satisfaction than seeing his face darken with defeat. I turned around and saw how Mallory was glaring at me with hatred, and I just smirked smugly. As promised, I got what I wanted. Secondly, about my mother, she begged me and my father to forgive her. My father categorically refused to just let her off the hook, and insisted that she start therapy to address her deeply ingrained misandrist views and to understand how terrible her behavior toward me had been during my time of vulnerability. I know that my parents love each other, and it breaks my heart to see their separation, but I understand my father and his desire to sort everything out with the help of a specialist. In her defense, I can say that she's indeed going to therapy regularly, although she's still living with her sister. I don't know if it will help her, but I hope she changes. As for Kylie, she no longer exists for me. I still keep in touch with her mother, as promised. She cut all ties with her daughter, and even said she had removed Kylie from her will, replacing her with me. I find it amusing to watch karma slowly, but surely catch up with Kylie. I've also heard rumors that Def doesn't want to marry Kylie, and doesn't want anything to do with her child, just as I suspected. Mallory is furious because, due to his actions, she lost 2 grandchildren, James and Nick. But Def isn't planning to change anything. As for me, after the divorce, I feel so much better. Now, I am fully focused on my children, and don't want to hold on to the past. I can't say this journey was easy, but I can say I don't regret anything. I'm glad I loved Def and married him, because otherwise, I wouldn't have my 2 beautiful children. I'm also glad he cheated on me because it was the push I needed to leave. Otherwise, I might still be stuck in an unhappy marriage. I believe everything happens for a reason. I believe in God's plan. So, that's the end of the story. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Now my thoughts. Let's go in order. I think for many, it was already obvious from the start that the author shouldn't have gotten together with that guy. His reaction was completely inadequate. Instead of being happy that he hit the jackpot by landing a girl from a wealthy family, he started attacking her. And then it surprised me even more. Why was he attacking her? Because if you don't like it, okay, go work, but no. Instead, he started exploiting this situation, just sucking all the resources from her. But okay, that happens in life. People make strange decisions. But what shocked me the most was, of course, the mother's reaction. Actually, it wasn't the reaction of the mother that shocked me the most, but the father's. I mean, if the father and mother have completely opposite opinions, that's strange. Why did the father stay with this woman for so long? It's just some kind of trash. Maybe that's why his daughter chose such an abnormal husband. Maybe her behavior was just like his, and that's why this all happened. And of course, I was shocked by Kylie's mother's behavior. No matter how bad your daughter is, rewriting your will or leaving everything to another woman. That's really strange. After all, this is your grandchild who will need to be raised and supported. It's very strange. For me, this is just an incredible triple, quadruple, I don't know combo. Let me know if you agree with me or not, or if you have your own thoughts on all of this. And thanks for watching this video until the end. Watch our previous video, which you'll find right here, and good luck.